Hi, my name is Maya Miller,
Hi, my name is Chloe Garden.
and this is SiSTEM, Bytes and Insights. Today we have the lovely Alanna.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, no, you're our first guest, and I'm so grateful that you honestly even said yes, and then also just making your appearance and dropping these gems.
Yeah.
I'm just here to tell my story. Hopefully other people can get something from it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like the whole purpose of the podcast. Like, I feel like I gave you the spiel, but like, I feel like you're an incredible person that I met when I moved to New York City. And I just feel like New York City in general just has so many fire people, but like on the journey, you just meet so many incredible women. And I feel like this platform will allow us to like really have like in-depth stories and then like just have a better understanding about like how you're able to like get to where you are today. Okay, so what is your favorite bite?
I love me a homemade guac, some chips.
Oh,
You know,
boy, do I
that's-
have some news for you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, yeah. So obviously on Bites and Insights, we're gonna bite as we get into the insights.
I'm gonna cry. This is so nice. Homemade guacamole. Wow. You guys are on it. This is so cute. This is the nicest thing I ever got.
Oh my god, let me help you.
So let's
Oh my god.
let's dig in a little bit of this. I need to take a bite of this. I need to. Okay.
It actually looks really good.
It
like-
does.
Shout out to the
nice
chef.
and green.
Big
Camera.
D.
Camera, are you
Big
picking
D.
that up? Are you getting all that?
Ow. Okay, wait. Get one, Chloe.
Okay. A little dip on the chip.
I mean,
Looks
like,
great.
how are we about to get into the insights without a bite? Like,
Okay.
it's kind of mandatory. Mmm. Mmm.
This is
Smacktastic.
great.
Mm.
What is it? The flavors are tantalizing my tongue. It's actually good, girl.
It's so good.
Wait, one more.
That's 8.
I'm sorry.
I can tell when it's homemade.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell. This is homemade.
This is very good.
Mm-hmm. This ain't that Chipotle nonsense. This is
Bravo.
real. It was in a kitchen. Yeah, they did that.
Okay, so Alanna, tell us about, we know you went to Howard, and you're very proud of that. Tell us
I
about
am.
your journey starting from your freshman year at Howard.
Yeah. Okay. I can. So, my software engineering, computer science background actually starts in high school, and this is like really important for me to include in my story because I think a lot of times people don't highlight their failures, and we'll get into like my philosophy about failing and like why it's so important later. But I like really intentionally always try to start my story at high school because I took an intro to computer science class in high school and I liked it. I loved it actually.
Mm-hmm.
Went to go take the AP computer science course. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or just like the concepts I was not grasping, but I ended up taking the AP computer science exam and bombing, like to the point where like I was like, let me just take a nap. I actually just put my head on the desk, closed the book. I was like,
During the actual exam.
yeah, oh yeah. I said, no point in continuing wasting my time here. I already know what score I'm getting. Regardless if I stay awake and do this test or not, I'm getting the same score.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm so curious. What is the exam? Like, are you actually like writing code on paper?
There might have been a section that did that. I wouldn't know because I closed the booklet. So who knows? But I bombed it. And that's really important to say because, I ended up, getting, doing 3 internships at Google. I'm at Google full time, been there for 6 years teaching intro computer science. But like early on in my computer science journey, I like literally failed my classes. So like, there's, it doesn't always have to be a perfect path to success.
Yeah.
And so failed the computer science class, decided I can restart this whole thing when I get to college. Thankfully, I just won't submit my AP scores. It's fine. And so I started again when I was at college. Howard wasn't really on my vision board for real. My parents were not like the parents that like pushed college. Like I kind of like knew, I should go to college, but never did any college tours or anything like that. No, I didn't. My friend had gotten into Howard and got a scholarship, and I said, I want one.
Yeah.
So I applied early action too, and so I ended up getting a scholarship. Howard was not too far from me because I'm from Maryland, and that's how I ended up at Howard. And the Lord was just looking brightly on me because it just so many coincidences that I would have never been able to plan for myself. I always say that I'm a non-specific manifester in that way. Like if I sat there and actually tried to plan out what my journey in tech would look like, it would have been completely different and probably actually less successful than the actual journey that I had. Because I just went in with an open mind, I was like, I'm gonna just work hard.
Yeah.
Everything was at my disposal when I was there. I was getting so many internship opportunities. Companies were coming in. Google actually taught my freshman intro to computer science class. So, had that relationship, ended up getting the internship, continuing with the internship. I was in every single club at Howard. I had just such, I was so visible in college to so many different companies. And that was just, the culture that Howard kind of curated for us, that there was just so many opportunities, and I was there at every single one. I was there, I was hustling. I was there, I was like, look, I'm not going to pass up this moment. Look, I got to get out in 4 years because that's how much my scholarship covered. Yeah. And I was like, I'm here to work. So, I was not a partier or anything like that. I was in the engineering building. That's why anybody asked me, they were like, oh, what year did you graduate? Oh, do you know so-and-so? Were they engineering? Because no.
I don't know.
That's where I was.
Right,
I was in the engineering building. Everybody on my floor in my freshman dorm, they're like, oh, you always coming back in late. You must be with a boy. I'm like, I'm in a book. You thought
IDE, okay?
Yes,
that's what my man's initial is.
yes.
IDE.
Because I was determined to not fail it again. I think also having that experience of having failed and knowing what that felt like. Yeah. I'm not making that same mistake twice. And I was on it. So
I'm really curious. So between you failing AP Computer Science and then you applying, did you take that class your junior year or your senior year of high school?
I took it my junior year.
So what made you still want to pursue computer science then? After that rough experience?
Great question. I was in a science and tech school, so it kind of pushed that kind of what about a career in science or tech? I'm like, oh, okay. And so they we explored a whole bunch of different engineering disciplines. I did architecture in high school, and
what kind of school you go to?
It was Eleanor Roosevelt High School.
That's Eleanor Roosevelt.
Greenbelt, Maryland, yes.
Shout out to Maryland.
The founder of Google, Sergey Brin, went there. Yes, so it's greatness. Google greatness coming out of that high school, for real. So I kind of knew that I was going to do something in tech, probably something engineering, and so
you had a lot of exposure then through your high school academic career.
Yeah, but I mean, also I knew myself. I knew I'm not I'm a girly girl, and so I knew I wasn't going to get my hands dirty. Civil engineers, they had to play in dirt, and architecture, that's a hard hat. I'm not wearing that.
Zoom in on the nails so you can see. Okay, she keeps them nice and fresh. Okay, as a coder. Period.
So, I gotta have something to look at when I'm typing.
That's exactly what I say. That's crazy. That's literally what I be saying.
Yes. So I was I knew I was gonna do something, but I knew it couldn't be something that was gonna be with my hands. But I wanted to be able to be creative and create. And computer science, I feel gave me that. I could create without having to, draw, because I'm also really bad at drawing.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I feel sometimes when you're able to write code and build something, you really are creating something from nothing, from little scratch. So that's why I be saying we're builders.
We are.
Very much so. Okay, I want to get into more of, because you touched on it a little bit about your computer science experience at HBCU, and I feel I've seen it from my friends that go to Spell House and my friends that went to Howard. Your example of all of the, I guess pipeline money that was pumped into the HBCUs, and I want to hear more about how you were able to tap into all of the resources and actually make it work for you so that you're able to like really get the career that you wanted?
It's like there were a lot of companies on campus. I wouldn't say there was like we were very resource rich. We definitely made it do with what we had. Like I was fortunate that I was at Howard surrounded by other hustlers. Like I definitely always had that like dog in me, you know what I'm saying?
Talk about it.
Yeah, no, I was like from a young age, I was like I am gonna get to the bag. Like I'm so
like,
serious. I was like I didn't have like allowance for real growing up, and I decided, you know what, 12 years old, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I see YouTubers making money. This is like very early, you know, this is like before the Jackie Inas even were online, you know. I was like, I'm gonna make YouTube videos, and I was like, you know, get into my natural hair. I would go around emailing companies, excuse me, I have an YouTube channel. Do you think you could provide me a coupon or a free product? I would love to do a review.
What age were you doing this?
I love
12.
This is incredible.
12 years old. Can2. I would literally be looking up Can2 email address. Yep, and emailing them because like I don't have money, but hey, I can turn it into something. And I did it until
That's
I like
inventing influencing, girl.
Oh, I was.
Yeah, that is like.
I actually worked my way up to be a product reviewer for naturallycurly.com. They would send me a box of products every month. And then asked me to review it, and I had to post it on their YouTube channel. They gave me the password. I'm 12 years old. I'm 12 years old. They gave me their YouTube password. They're like, post on our YouTube channel. And so I was just like, I always just kind of had it in me. I was like, I'm going to make a way. Like, I don't got much, but I'm going to make it. And so that's kind of how it was at Howard. We didn't have very many resources. Like, we had a very, like, lacking computer lab, I would definitely say, by, like, a lot of people's standards, you know, because UMD was right down the street, Georgetown, GW, like all these schools that like definitely have way more funding than Howard, and so you could definitely see what the difference was. But you know, I was at every single company like information session that was there. I didn't matter if I knew what the company was or not. And actually, like my department chair at the time actually walked up to me like a month into school. He's like, "You're at every single meeting." I was like, is that not what I'm here to do?
Right.
Like, I'm here to get a job. Like, this starts freshman year. The work starts freshman year. So, yes, I'm at every single one of them in the front. He was like, okay. And so, I was kind of like, I was just kind of had that in me. Like, you can't outwork me. I mean, you might can, but you going to work hard to outwork me. You're going to work hard too.
I want to know how you were able to secure your first internship at Google.
Yeah.
I do want to like you to talk about that.
Yeah. So with the introductory class kind of being taught by a Googler, I had that kind of one-on-one connection with them. I was doing really well in the class to the point where I was asking for additional work. Cause I was like, oh, like I knew I was like, someone had told me that like, as a freshman, you should try to get an internship. And I know there's not that many internship opportunities for freshmen, but I knew that I was going to be one of the ones.
Yeah.
So I was like already preparing. I was talking to her like, oh yeah, like, do you think you could give me some mock interviews? Like, oh yeah, like what kind of questions? And yeah, so because I did so well in the class, I think they were able to, you know, I still had to apply, but I think they were able to get me an interview. And through that interview, ended up doing really well in the interview. To the point the interview was like making up questions at the point. Like he went through all the questions he had. He was like, oh, there's extra time. Like, what about this? I'm doing like random questions he didn't actually plan to ask me.
Was it a technical interview?
It was.
Yeah, mine was too.
Whiteboard. I was coding on the whiteboard.
For freshman year, yeah.
Yeah, I was coding on the whiteboard. Yeah. And I was on campus, thankfully. So, like, you know, in my comfort zone. And I did really well. And they offered me an internship. I think by Christmas. Before even second semester started, I know I was going to be working at Google that summer.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah.
So like you did 3 internships at Google.
3.
And then you've been working at Google now for 6 years.
6 years.
And now, like, walk me through what your current role is right now.
Yeah, so I am a software engineer. I'm at Google DeepMind, so that's our AI arm. I work a lot on Gemini, and specifically working with AI, developing models, making sure that I don't do too much model development, I should say. I do more of the safety and evaluation work on models. So I help to improve, like, the models that will then be in Gemini and that people can use.
Got you. And like when I first met you, you were like headed to New Orleans to be teaching at Xavier.
Yes.
So I do want you to like, I guess like, how did that opportunity come about? And I want you to really like, I guess like deep dive us into like your experience as a professor at another HBCU.
Yes. Okay. So it was very near and dear to my heart because, you know, being in a freshman class taught by a Googler, I really understand how that experience had an influence on my career. Like, obviously, that was, you know, you only can imagine what you can see around you. Like, that's why, you know, representation in film and media is so important, because in order to visualize, you need to be able to see it. And so being able to sit in a Googler-led classroom, my instructor was actually a Black woman at Google. So it's like, oh, this is achievable. This is accomplishable. And I like just saw how great that was. And I was like, I definitely want to give back to the program when I have the chance. So my first opportunity to want to wait until I got my first promotion at Google. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to do this. So I signed up, applied for the program because I was like a former person that sat in the GIR Google resident classroom. They were like,
this is like a real full circle moment.
Yeah, no, it was very full circle. And I wanted to go to a smaller HBCU. Like Howard is class size has exploded. So, you know, Howard is 200 students in the intro class. Whereas, when I was in the intro class, there was only 30.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Howard is... A lot more people are applying to Howard these days. But, yeah, I just really wanted to give back, and I would specifically to a smaller HBCU so that I could have that one-on-one connection. Like, I really wanted to be able to impart on my students in a very meaningful way. And so I was very, very calculated even about how I... went about my pedagogy for when I taught. I had like a whole teaching philosophy stock, and you know, I wanted to reward actually failing, because what I think a lot of people don't realize is that failing is actually so important to the learning process. But what we see a lot of times in education is that failing is not acceptable. Right? Like, you know, everything is punitive. Everything is worth a certain amount of points. You really can't not do well on every assignment because you are actually in danger of failing the course. And then when you're at the collegiate level, that means maybe repeating a class, which costs money. You know, we're paying $600 to $800 per credit. That's a lot of money. And so I feel like that environment is actually what encourages cheating, to be honest. And like, not only are you cheating, you know, like, and you know, at the time you were like, I'm just trying to like make sure I pass this course because I can't afford to retake it.
Yeah, you're just trying to survive.
But you're accidentally also cheating yourself out of the experience to actually learn the right material. So I wanted to make sure in my class, at least, there was a comfortability with the material that like every time I see it shouldn't be you trying to give me, you know, the perfect answer. I want to actually be able to see where you're at, and the only way to do that is to work myself. I'm not like, I'm here, like I was in a very grateful position where I taught one class. So, and Google allowed me to do that. So they flew me down to New Orleans. I did that full time, and I didn't have to do my regular software engineering job. So I taught one class. So I was like, you know what? I'm putting my all in. Like, I have the time that most teachers typically wouldn't. Most teachers are doing way more than that. And so I have the time to invest in you all. So I actually made sure that, like, I was grading assignments but not putting the grades in. So it was like, I was like, every homework assignment, it barely was worth any points. Just because, like, you know, I was giving them homework every class, and I'm like, I want you to actually be able to assess where you are and also not feel inclined to cheat. It's not worth worth any points, really. You could not turn anything in and still get an A in class, technically. But every student still did.
That also goes to, like, it supports the mindset that we follow now in industry. It's like, you want to fail fast. You want to like move fast and break things.
Because there's learning in that, right? I think when you sit in a classroom and you're hearing the teacher say all the things to you, you think it makes sense. Like, I'm a logical person. Of course you want to agree with everything I say. Of course you don't want to be like, oh, wait, no, what you said didn't make any sense, even if it does. Like, like you want to agree with me. It's natural. It's human. And so what I was finding is that students aren't saying when they're not getting it fully, or they don't even realize they don't. Like, they're hearing me say it. They're hearing me walk. They're like, that makes sense, but they can't do it on their own. And so they don't find out until a homework assignment, you know? So I had to like find different ways, and like even in engaging the students, right? Because in a very difficult time period. And I was doing this, post-pandemic. This was the first
this is a virtual class.
No. I was in person in New Orleans. Okay. But this is the first class that they had since the pandemic in person. Man. All their classes before that were actually virtual.
Oh, wow.
So I also had, new challenges in that because everybody's used to I can just stop paying attention whenever I want because I'm at home.
Checking out,
yeah, I can go on YouTube and just stop paying attention and whatever. I'll watch the recording later. Yeah. I don't record my courses, so you can't do that with me. Yeah, I don't. I mean, not only was I looking at pedagogy specifically because it was at an HBCU, so I looked up Africana pedagogy, specifically
what is that?
What I was very curious about learning systems. The westernized learning system versus African-based learning systems.
Okay.
And Africana-based education systems have more of a concept of Ubuntu that you don't really find anymore in U.S. and Western education because, a lot of universities do the plus-minus system and these distributive curve where everybody can't get an A. Only the top 10% of the class can get an A.
Struggle.
And I'm so lucky that at Howard we did not have that. Howard was very everything was honestly very community-based, project-based.
Really?
Yes, they encouraged it.
That is the opposite of my experience at the PWI. When I say everybody was competing against each other.
Yeah. I can believe it. I've heard the horror stories, and I went to make sure that that was allowed because in industry, in practice, we say peer program.
Right.
We say look it up, ask other people.
Yep.
But in my classroom to prepare you for that, I penalize you for asking your friends for help.
And I think that's kind of why sometimes I feel like a lot of not so individualistic people end up becoming engineers, unfortunately, because I feel like a lot of people who do need that like you said, Ubuntu learning get kind of weeded out. Because a lot of my classes were weed out classes, very much so professor was saying this is a weed out class, we'll see who gets to make it at the end. And I feel like your teaching though actually makes it not only accessible but just in general, just trying to actually bring everybody in so that you can actually learn.
I just really needed the things that we were saying in industry to reflect in actually the education system.
Yeah.
Because it's we say, diversity is important, diversity of thought is important.
Right.
But then we have auto graders that make sure that we only grade a specific way.
Right.
You need to answer it the way that I expected you to. And it's no, it's a lot of creativity that I'm allowing in this answer. And there was a lot of times where I would grade. It would take me so long to grade because I would grade exams 3 and 4 times. Because sometimes I see a wrong answer and I think about it a little further. I'm like, I can understand how you got there based off of the way that the question was phrased.
Yeah.
I can see how that's a possible answer. I'm gonna give you the points because I'm not gonna penalize you on an ambiguous question.
Yeah. Especially if they're thinking creatively,
Yeah.
about the solution, which is kind of what you should be learning in engineering school is how to have creative solutions.
Yeah, because in your interview, it's not just does this algorithm work? It's how did you come about this? How did you how did you think of this? What was the thought process? Why does this work? Why do you think it should work? What it's a conversation. It's not just there's no one answer.
Exactly. So, yeah. And so I also, like I said, battling the phones. My goal was in the classroom, you could have your phone. I allowed students to have their phone in the classroom. I didn't ban any devices at all, actually. My job is to be more interesting than what's in your phone. That's my job. What am I doing? I'm just talking to myself up here unless I'm trying to be more interesting than what you're looking at on Instagram.
Gotcha.
So I had I studied attention spans for their age group and how I can engage them. Okay, the average attention span, 10 minutes. Okay, I'm teaching a 40-minute class. Okay, so I need 4 attention grabbers built into my lesson. And so I had I was playing SpongeBob clips, anything to make them look back up. And that's how I told them why I was doing it and hey, it's okay if you look down, but I want you to be able to have several opportunities to look back up and re-engage in the lesson.
Yeah.
That is more realistic, right? You gonna zone out in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
That shouldn't be it happens. But to act young adults. I try not to call them children. They were 18, 17, 18. But, like, young adults deserve the same grace that we give adults. Like, if I'm allowed to zone out in a meeting, you're allowed to zone out in my lecture for 2 minutes as long as you look back up.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually. Look back up. Start paying attention again. Like, refocus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even from day one, like, my day one lecture, sat there, we looked at the stats. What is the actual amount of women in the industry, the amount of black women, Latino, white, Asian in the industry? I actually just put the bar charts without any of the labels on it. So which one do you think is black people? And they were like, I'm guessing it's the lowest one. And I'm like,
and you're correct.
Okay, and why do you think that is? They were like, and they gave me amazing answers. They were like,
wow.
It's because they don't market to us. It's because they don't, encourage us to actually pursue these fields. They, lack of resources. I said, let's take a second because you guys are saying very valuable things. But the one thing I want to acknowledge you did not say is that it's not because you're not smart enough or you can't do it or like, oh, you don't deserve to be there. Like, I'm glad that all of you guys acknowledge that. Like, some things are outside of your control of like why you didn't learn computer science yet. But like, this is your opportunity. We're going to start from level 1. This is your opportunity to like get it. And I'm like, we'll keep working on it. We're going to work on it. I mean, I did so many stuff like that. Like, even I put a picture of Bill Gates on the board. No label, just the picture of Bill Gates. And they're like, oh, that's Bill Gates. I'm like, great. Put another picture on the board. They're like, Steve Jobs. Wow. Another picture. Elon Musk. I start putting Marion Croak. They don't know who that is. Black woman. She's the one who created voice over IP. She's the reason you can like text to donate during like, natural disasters. She's a VP at Google. She has over 300 patents. They don't know any black inventors, actually. I went through like several names. I was like, do you know? And I was like, anybody in the room, I will give you $50. Do you know any black computer scientists? They don't. Yeah. So like that's also like a big thing in representation. Like it was really important for me to specifically be in that classroom, teaching that class.
1,000%, because like you literally had that experience when you were a freshman in your intro class, seeing it, and I feel like the same thing. I feel like all of us can probably relate to that, being able to like actually have one or two people who look kind of sort of like us, and like that actually being like a seed that like was able to like blossom into like the career that you're in now.
Oh yeah, it's even worse than AI. I'm in AI. It's not black at all. Like I don't like my team is fortunately all women. But I'm the only black person for miles. It's like and thankfully my skip level is a black man, but it's not very diverse in the space yet. Right. But it needs to be, right? Especially if like AI is going to have the change in the industry that we're expecting, and it's going to be the thing that's in everything.
That's supposed to like revolutionize every individual's lives.
It's supposed to determine so many things in people's lives.
Exactly. It's changing the way we're interacting with technology even right now. So, there needs to be more people of color in the room, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially like we're talking about like, the big fears like these rogue AIs. I'll plug a book from Ruha Benjamin. It's called The New Jim Code. And essentially the book is about, these kind of rogue AI systems, right? If there's like not people of color in the room, what are the possible consequences of that, right? Like, AI's cool, if you're using it to, write your bio, write an email, write a little email real quick or something, write a little poem. But I'm still very fearful of a lawmaker using it to create legislation that like everybody
with the lawmakers these days.
I'm not confident that they're not. I'm not confident that they're not
one of those platforms. Okay.
Yes, and so what is explored in this idea of the new Jim Code is Jim Crow era laws kind of being brought into reemergence based off of like these kind of AIs that like aren't trained on societal context, are learning these incorrect things about human nature, and have the possibility to perpetuate systems that we're actually trying to get further away from. Exactly, are still present. Like if it's trained on data, right? The data of what America is and has been is racism. you know, is systematic
Talk
oppression,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
So
Talk about it.
if grandmas and grandpas, not ours, but other people's, if they couldn't unlearn racism, why do we think an AI system could?
Yeah,
you know,
that's
so
so
it's like,
real.
you know, there's these really like big consequences that it's
Very big
important.
consequences.
Yeah, very important for Black and Brown people to be in the room to make sure that, you know, we can develop systems, and that's what I do at Google. And
I want you to, like, if you had to explain what AI is to a child, give us the rundown.
Okay, I've been working on this for a little while, so I'll try to explain it as AI it's a tool, right? Same way a calculator is a tool, right? And a tool is only as powerful as the hands that it's in, right? Like you give a hammer to me, nothing's getting built. But you know, maybe a Zaha Hadid or maybe an architect, they can create something more beautiful, more elaborate with a hammer. It's the same thing. AI is a tool that can be used to build anything. And the goal that we're trying to get to with AI is having these intelligent learning systems that are not just able to they're not just able to do exactly what we tell it to do, because that's kind of what AI systems of the past used to do. Like when they would teach them, like, you know, oh, this AI is a chess expert. They would just teach it every single move that's possible in chess. Teach it all the like ways past champions have won, and then it would kind of just learn to kind of mimic and copy things that it did. The next step that we're trying to do is to mimic human brain, the way that we're able to like learn over time. And like, oh, we learn by actually doing, we learn by developing, we learn by playing. That's what, you know, Gemini and DeepMind is doing with, you know, AlphaGo and AlphaFold 3 and like all these like models that are being developed.
Yeah.
No longer are you teaching it how to play these like games very intelligently, but just letting it play, and it's learning based off of like having the experience of having done it the same way we would learn, the same way I've learned my whole life. So that's
fire.
That's probably like the
That was a good. I thought that was a good explanation.
Great explanation.
Yeah.
So you talked about how AI now is becoming like a tool that, like, the thing that's in everything. So how do you see that affecting the Black community, and how do you think that would like disparage us, you know, differently than other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real, it's hard to predict, you know, like what is going to actually be of AI. It's definitely not a fad in the same way crypto was. I know some people are gonna.
Crypto's a big fad.
I know that's gonna make some people upset, but it's not that. This is definitely like, you know, I've talked to a lot of VPs and directors at Google about this, and this is definitely like something that's here to stay. It's something that a lot of companies are investing in, and it's like it's going to have long-term effects. I think actually the bigger like consequence of that could happen to the Black community in the space is not being involved in emerging technology. I think that's like really important to press upon, and that's something I definitely taught in my classroom, is that like, hey, if you want to be resistant to economic changes and always kind of make sure that you have a job, you have to be on the cutting edge. Like, unfortunately,
so, like, what's next?
Like, unfortunately, you can't learn. It's not possible to always learn one thing and then make a lifelong career out of it. Like, I'm sorry, if you learn Pascal, like your jobs are limited.
Shout out to Pascal.
You know, like then, so it's the same thing. This is a new technology. It really is important for people of color to be learning these new technologies as well. And like, it's a funding and a resource issue, right? Like my HBCU, Howard, I don't think is teaching very many AI courses at all yet. Yeah, like, you know, so, you know, there's a need for more people of color to be in the space, because it's definitely necessary for us to be in the room, but it's very hard. It's very hard to get there, and it's also like, you know, it comes at a cost. Like, even if you are able to afford to get a degree in it, again, it's that same like penalty of like in that learning process of, hey, I'm learning this thing, but I have to be perfect,
right?
In order to pass. Oh yeah, and it's way harder in grad school. If you think, bachelor's degree was hard, it's way harder in grad school. I have a friend getting an AI PhD right now, working part time, and can't get any B's. Has to get all A's. Wow. Yeah, so it is, you know, there is not a lot of ways to like have penalty-free learning in AI yet.
Right.
The thing I try to encourage people is that like AI, your path into AI doesn't have to all look the same. Everybody isn't training the model. I'm not training the model. But a lot of people think that's the only way I can be part of AI. Oh, like it's too confusing. Machine learning that's too much. I don't want to learn that. I write in Python. You know, that is also the language that I taught in my intro course. You know, so I do that every day, and I very much have an AI focused career. I work very directly with AI and like doing model evaluation. So there are a lot of pathways to be in AI without working on the model.
Can you talk a little bit more like on your team, like breakdown? Because you're a software engineer and you're working with a lot of researchers. So, like, what does your team's like makeups like so people can know what I guess like roles they could be looking up to see how to prepare?
So my team is mostly research scientists. I'm actually the only software engineer on my team right now, and so there's a lot of research scientist roles. I definitely work with a lot of linguists because, as you probably know, it's language models. So need people who are experts at language, who understand language, you know, and also, you know, there's multilinguality because we're talking about, you know, this is a system that can be used globally, so we need to make sure we're prepared for that. I work with, there's UX researchers, there's UX designers. I mean, there's so many roles in AI. It's all the like typical roles that are in tech exist in AI as well. You know, so just to encourage people to, you can get a foot in anyway, but if with passion and drive, you can get there. You have to ask questions. I think that's the like bigger thing about like doing something that's more exploratory in a space that's kind of like not carved out. AI is definitely not a space where it's like it's all answers. Where it's like, you know, typically when we're writing code and we're doing that and like from school, like no, you do it this way. Right. Everybody does it this way.
And you
this
can look
is
up the answers on Stack Overflow.
Exactly.
Ain't no Stack Overflow to help you with this.
It's
uncharted territory.
Exactly. We're coming up with new strategies every day to like further develop like real test for the models, right?
Would you say that, and there may not be like an answer for this, but would you say that there's any one or handful of roles so far that are like carved out right now that you see we really need Black people the most? Like, would you say it's in training the models or like in the UX or like, is there a way, is there anywhere that you see we really are like lacking the most and really need it?
Well, I'm the only Black person for real, that I see on a daily basis. So, I mean, we're needed everywhere. I would say that, though, I think that it's really important to have, like, people of color that fully understand the space, though, and can communicate it back to other people. I always go back to my classroom, but I feel like everything I taught in the classroom is also just how I feel about life in general. Like, you are on a hero's journey. Part of that journey is after you've learned all the things that you learned, you go back and you teach it to your community. So there's definitely a need. It's very necessary for people to like fully understand the space. Like, and you could do that, I would say, probably more generally from a program manager, project manager role. But fully understand what is going on in that space to be able to communicate it back to your community. So I would love to see more Black people.
And do you have like any tips and like resources for people who like maybe they already are a PM or already are a UX designer or already are a software engineer, but like they're trying to make that transition to like the AI space, like websites that they can like learn about, like research papers or anything like that?
Off the top of my head, like, there's research happening all the time. It's very hard to, like, pinpoint with accuracy because what's current is changing so quickly. The whole space is changing very, very quickly. What I will say is that if you know what SFT, RLHF is, that's a good starting point. If you don't know, then that's what you need to learn.
She's dropping the gems.
Yes,
she's dropping the gems.
You need to learn about actually what are the language that is being spoken in those rooms so that you can have those conversations, right? That's like the first step, like learning the keywords, right? So you need to learn exactly, right? So to make sure that you can keep up in the conversation. It's like, okay, like I could give you a link to a course, but it's going to be way overhead if you don't have the base understanding of the key terminology and the things that are happening. So learn what SFT is, RLHF, and that is a very good starting point of like starting to understand the space a little bit more. Then after that, you might want to like look into prompt engineering, maybe look a bit into actually figuring out and playing with some of the models, like using like Vertex AI and Gemini, you know, plug. But, you know, using some of the tools to actually like, you know, build AI and use it for an actual task. I always say tinkering is the best way to learn.
Yeah.
Be very hands-on.
Hands-on learning, I feel like, for me, is my best form of learning as well. And I feel like how you said asking questions and even like connecting with individuals like yourself, like who are occupying that space, are trying to open it up for more people that look like you to enter that space. Like, you're a great resource yourself.
I am. I try to be.
Oh my God. Okay, so we're like wrapping up now.
Yeah.
So like, what does the SiSTEM audience have to look forward coming from you next?
Yes. Okay. I do a little bit of everything. I have my 9 to 5. I'm at Google. I've, you know, worked on several startups at this point. Just finished Techstars cohort. So, you know, I guess to look forward to me is that, like, I'm always going to be doing something if you ask, depending on what day you ask me.
I love that.
A hustler, everyday hustler.
For real, I'm constantly challenging myself to learn, and I encourage everybody to do the same, like, whether it's in tech or not. Like, I took sewing classes last year. I took piano classes. I've never played an instrument before in my life. I was like, let me just learn piano. I think it's so important to constantly put yourself in a position to be a baby to something, like something you have no idea how or what it does or how it works, and you start from that level. It's so good to just like experience failure constantly. It just puts you in a good position. You're like way ahead of your peers because a lot of people are afraid to fail.
Afraid.
So once you conquer that fear of failing, you can do anything.
Wow, that's so powerful. Because I feel like you're a very curious person. Like, if I had to like pick adjectives, curious would be on the top. And like determined, and I would say resilient as well. Because I feel like you said, so many people are afraid of failing, but I feel like you actually embrace exposing yourself to like failure. It's like, what is it, like rejection therapy? It's like failure therapy. Like exposing yourself to like the opportunity to fail, so that you can like how you said earlier, like fail fast.
I feel like also, this might be aside, but I feel like also coming in, starting something new when you're older and more mature, you're able to just like learn, pick up things faster. You're not resting on your laurels anyway. So
exactly, you get it.
Like, I love my multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate friends. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. You can find me on LinkedIn. My Instagram is for the homies. But you can find me on LinkedIn, ALANNA WALTON. Okay. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Wherever you're listening to this at.